She is Charly Arnolt, the host of OutKick The Morning. Hit OutKick.com. And he's Ryan Glasspiegel, a New York Post sports and entertainment reporter. What's up, guys?
What's going on?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Ryan, you might be the perfect guy to ask that to. Like, if you said, Will, what areas of the country are you most culturally unaware? I would say two. Prior to living for 15 years in New York, I would have said the Northeast. So what I mean by that is like New England. I don't really know like Connecticut culture. I didn't. New Hampshire. But I've spent 15 years in the Northeast, and I was 5 years at ESPN. So I got some sense of the dudes with their, little lobster shorts and, they're going for a clam bake or something like that. Like, I'm getting who those dudes are. But the other pocket of the country I don't know is yours, like the Midwestern guy, like all the way from Ohio up through Michigan into Wisconsin and down to Chicago. That dude, I don't know the archetypes. I don't know the prototypes. So, like, I can look at Michael Cohen and who he is, having lived in New York, and I say, I know that dude in Texas. So what is that dude like in the Midwest?
He I think there's a good chance that he works in logistics, like setting up someone needs freight moved from one place to another, because, that's a job where on one hand, it seems like it's kind of a commodity product, but you really got to sell your butt off to move it. And there's a lot of companies that have a lot of kind of type A spinning male personalities who succeed in that profession.
Oh, okay, first of all, I like this. So that guy is, let's be real, we'll just cut to it. He's really good at bullshit, and he's got a lot of type A salesmanship to him, so much so that it is a total inability to sort of parse the truth. But I need just a little more color. Like, in the Midwest, like, what is that guy's image? Like, what's he driving? What's he wearing? I just need a little more color on this dude.
Well, it's,
I need a little more color on this dude from Chicago.
You can be out for a whole weekend in the Midwest and no one ever asks you what you do. You just kind of like live separately from your career in many cases. And so it's, I grew up in the Connecticut, New England region that you're talking about near ESPN. It's like very different there, where I don't think you can be at dinner for a half hour and not have any idea what people do for a living. But I mean, if he's living in Chicago, he's probably in the West Loop or River North. It's like a way station until he moves out to the suburbs. The northern suburbs belong to a country club, play golf there, and you'll never see him again.
And Charly, this is your ideal boyfriend. Ideally a husband.
I'm from the Midwest. And there's a reason why I was single throughout living in the Midwest. And then now finally I'm on the East Coast. And quite frankly, these are more of my type of men. I like the men who very much lead. They're very dominant and they are comfortable talking about who they are and what they're doing in the world today. I would say that the guy in the Midwest, instead of seeing him wearing a Rolex on his watch, he has a Breitling on, and he thinks that's the same thing. There is definitely levels to it. I think in the Midwest, it's a little more understated. Nothing wrong with it. But once you get to the East Coast, the New York area, the LAs, and even, where you're from in Texas, you see things a little more, I don't know. It's taken up a few notches. But definitely in New York, the guys are much different than they are in the Midwest. But it makes me laugh, Will, because I've been watching Billions. I just started watching Billions, the show that I think it premiered on Showtime in 2015 or so. But I'm on season 3. I'm so wrapped up in it. And it's all about like these big wigs in the financial world. And Michael Cohen, I have such a disdain on the show for Chuck Rhoades. He's the attorney general for like the Southern District of New York. Michael Cohen is Chuck Rhoades. For anyone out there who is listening, you definitely know what I'm talking about.
Billions.
That show falls off.
Oh,
no
God.
spoilers, but you're at about the peak of it.
What's that?
Oh,
I said the Billions. It gets a lot worse. It falls
I'm so
off.
into it. Yeah, I love it. I'm like obsessed right now. I'm so sucked in. So
It's not a show that ever brought me in. I'm
oh my,
wrapped up
really?
right now in Shogun on FX. No, I don't know. There's too many shows. It just,
Too
I don't
many
know.
shows.
Never became the one that I tuned into. Too many shows, but not enough good shows. I want to bring you guys into this. I found this fascinating. So this is Bill Maher versus Bill Burr, talking about where we are in the life cycle of cancel culture. Let's watch this together.
Whenever that cancel culture got to the point of where it was, I don't like some of the topics in your stand-up act.
Right.
Yeah, that's when it got weird. But like, that's all over. It's all over. That's
What's over? Cancel culture?
yeah. No one cares anymore.
That's so not true. Either one of us could get canceled in the next 2 minutes.
No. For what?
Yeah.
Well, if you're not doing anything, well, it's just like you did this joke about this group of people or that group of people, and I've decided to. I don't know. I feel like I'm going back 2 years of my life.
mean-
Like I don't even think about it anymore.
One of the things I do like, that's Club Random, is Bill Maher. Bill Maher has no he has no instinct in him that most human beings have. I've talked about this a lot on the show. Like there is a real guiding instinct among people to get along. Like it's really, really powerful. And we want to fit in. We're herd animals. That's why fear is so powerful, being ostracized from the herd. He is just not afraid to say to Bill Burr there, well, that's completely wrong. It's a record scratch in a conversation that most people are unwilling to reach up and drag the needle across the record. But I don't know who's right. I've thought about this a lot. I actually don't know who's right here in the life cycle of cancel culture. I'll start with you, Charly.
So I'm kind of in the middle. I think that we are seeing a decrease in cancel culture. I definitely am seeing instances now where people aren't pushing back or trying to cancel people like they once were. I feel like at one point you even did anything remotely wrong and people were coming for you and that was the end of it. And you had to be walking on such eggshells that it just felt unnatural. Now I do feel like we're getting back. I see comedians being able to be funny again. You saw Shane Gillis on SNL a couple of months ago, whereas he was canceled from SNL years back. He came on, finally they invited him back on the show, and he just started off by telling jokes about handicapped people and like all different types of minority groups, and no one said a word about it. People were actually laughing in the audience for once on SNL these days. I do think it depends on the setting you're in, though. I think if you are a comedian, for example, fine, you have a lot more leeway. I think that if you are a creator on social media, you might have a lot more leeway because you're playing to your audience. You might have people that don't like it, but those aren't the people that you're playing to, and you don't necessarily care about their viewpoints regardless. I think that if you're in a corporate setting, you have to be a lot more careful. And I think that's where cancel culture still truly exists, because you have so many different people that you have to play to, and you have a corporate structure that dictates what you can and cannot do. So if you go outside those lines, that's where you can really get in trouble, especially, being in this corporate structure. I understand how it works. And I still feel like most days I am, in a sense, even though I try to be myself as much as I can, I do feel like I'm walking on eggshells just a bit because I do not want to get in trouble.
Ryan, this conversation was kind of around the context of Louis C.K. Bill Maher's like, when does Louis C.K. get to come back? He has been canceled forever under the banner of Me Too. And if you do the relative nature of sins, his sin isn't sort of like capital punishment, death penalty, you never get to come back, your career is dead level. So if cancel culture's over, we should be able to bring back Louis C.K.
Yeah, I mean, he's still, to my knowledge, touring, and, it's not like he can't book a venue, but you're right, he doesn't have a TV show like he once had, and I do think that we might be nearing the statute of limitations on that. But I wanted to bring up something which both of you guys have had experience with. So, when you both worked at ESPN, could you have fathomed a time where a UFC pay-per-view would air on their airwaves? Granted, these are produced by UFC, not by ESPN, but Donald Trump gets shown coming into the arena to a raucous applause. So I think that there's been a vibe shift, but I wouldn't say that cancel culture is over.
So, I have a different relationship with ESPN than a lot of my former colleagues. I would include Charly, I think, and Sage Steele. You know, my experience with ESPN, and I will say, Charly, and you can address this.
Yeah.
I do think in a lot of ways I was a black sheep at ESPN. I mean, in every way, I was a black sheep at ESPN. But I was also an acknowledged black sheep. So, I mean, there was an article in the Washington Post about ESPN doesn't have a voice like mine. And so I think because of that, I mean, I guess the less flattering way to say this is, was I a token? I don't think I was a token. I think that my position came with a certain level of freedom that I did not feel inhibited, Ryan, in a lot of ways that other people have said they did feel inhibited. Now, I'd say this to Charly. I don't know if those inhibitions were about point of view or also job. You know what I mean? Like, my job was to do what I did, you know? And Charly, you were like, I remember you being the moderator on First Take, and that's a different job. You know, Sage was a host of SportsCenter. That's a different job. Now, where you guys are definitely right and true in what you guys had to say is people that had your job that had a different point of view were not shy about sharing those points of view, right? Where you would definitely have been disincentivized as someone who had the same job as, say, what was her name? Michelle Beadle. You would have been disincentivized from doing the same things Michelle Beadle did because your point of view was different. Where with me, if I look back on my time at ESPN, I was really never told I can't say something. I was told, I'm open with honest about this at times, on certain topics, I need to make sure I bring in all points of view. That's the only level of censorship that I ever had. And it was always a point of view that differed from mine, where I feel like if somebody had opinions that were different than mine, they weren't told, well, you should bring on Will to make sure you have another point of view. But anyway, so I don't know. That's just kind of me responding to you bringing up ESPN.
Where Donald Trump gets cheered loudly on ESPN airwaves?
There was a window where I think the answer is no, Ryan. And I do think that window probably was around, from 16 to, well, all the way through 20, probably, right? Probably in that time frame. The answer is probably no, Ryan. What do you think, Charly?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are definitely seeing things shifting. Like I said, I don't think cancel culture has gone away. I think things got so extreme for a little bit that now people are more comfortable having a more open, I guess a more, a debate that partakes in both sides. I think that you are seeing more of that now because people are just sick of one side getting shut down so often and you only seeing things from one point of view. And Will, to your point, when you were on ESPN, I do feel like you were the only person that really represented views from one side, because when you came in, that was the understanding of that was who you were. And they really wanted to embrace that because it's nice to have both sides of the debate present. And you offered a side that I don't think anyone else did. And I think that that's the reason why they didn't say anything to you, that's why I really enjoyed working with you all the time when I was able to, because so often I didn't hear the same points of view that you were exhibiting. And I'm noticing now, though, that, well, on occasion, it's still present, depending on what the conversation's about. But for the most part, we're really only still hearing on ESPN's airwaves viewpoints from I guess, more of a liberal point of view. So
moving beyond ESPN, I want to tell you guys something my producer said to me. I just want to see what you guys thought about this. This whole idea that cancel culture is dying, I think all my producers, Tinfoil Pat, Young Establishment James, Two-A-Days Dan, they all said, no, it's never dies. It's always here. I think that here at the Will Cain Show, we have a pretty strong fidelity to free speech, a principled position. But we've also come to realize that don't trust people because whenever someone gets the power, all of a sudden they're not as faithful to free speech and they want to shut down others that disagree with them, left or right. And I just wonder if cancel culture is a little bit like free speech. It's whoever has the power is guilty of exercising cancel culture. And my guys were like, go back to the 90s, Will. They were shutting down. Well, if you can do it both ways. They were trying to focus on the family, and others were shutting down different musical artists, but Rush Limbaugh at the same time got canceled off of ABC ESPN. So it's always been here. It just shifts hands back and forth by who has the power.
the reason that cancel culture will never die and the reason why it has gotten blown out to such extremes is because of social media and because people have access to witnessing things and recording them and posting them online instantly, whereas they didn't before. I mean, back in the day, I imagine all of the instances. I've probably had many situations myself growing up and in college where I've said and done things that if it were now, probably could have been canceled over it. Might not have the job in television that I mean, I don't know. It just probably depends on, on who was being the judge that day. But now, because everything that's said and done can be posted to the internet and go viral instantly, you have like the people's court at all times. And that's why cancel culture will actually never die, because no one is able to do things privately anymore. Like everything is out there for the world to now judge and dictate whether or not you deserve to be punished.
What do you think, Ryan? Like taking it back to the 90s like that. Like, you think it's always been around, cancel culture? This is actually not that new. It's just a little on steroids, maybe because of social media.
I mean, look at like the Salem witch trials or McCarthyism, or it does, to your point, switch like a pendulum based on who has the power. And, for a long time, I kind of supported a TikTok ban, but then I thought about it and I'm like, well, they're saying that this could be about, foreign agents gaining access to our distribution channels. Does that sound like something they could use to apply to X, formerly Twitter, with Elon Musk, who is an American citizen but foreign born? And could they make those same arguments they're using to force a sale of TikTok to X? And in this kind of like, reversion of cancel culture, I feel like X opening up and becoming this place of really unfettered free speech. And you can see some really grimy aspects of free speech if you go into the replies of anything about Israel and Palestine on both sides. But as our friend Bobby Burak likes to say, the solution to hate speech is more speech. And so I do think that right now cancel culture has abated, but you can never cancel culture.
It's funny you bring up the Salem witch trials because talking about this canceling, and Louis C.K., my producers, are like, this is human nature in the end. And that's what makes it interesting to me. Is it human nature? Like, we have to ostracize somebody. In middle school, there was somebody that got sent away from the lunch table, And I don't know why we have to do that, but it's almost like by ostracizing people, we help define who we are. And Louis C.K., you talk about him selling out arenas, that's fine. But you know what? He's not on the Tom Brady roast. He's not invited to whatever is seen as mainstream still. He's still not back at the lunchroom table. And I just wonder what it is about us that says we have to do this. We have to cancel people. We'll just take turns by whoever the cool kids are at the lunchroom table at any given moment in America. El Donaldo Trumpez says on YouTube, are people from the Northeast just generally better than everyone else? So that's in response to our different kinds of guys.
No.
I want to do this quick.
No, I agree. No, right.
No. No.
They think they are. They think they are, but they're not.
Well, so do people in Texas. We think we're better. I like that. You should. You should always think your people are the best. That's part of human nature as well.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've got the
let's
best
do this
of both
quickly.
worlds. Grown up in the Midwest, now I'm on the East Coast. I've got like the sweet kind-heartedness of a Midwest girl, but then I also have like the pompousness of a Northeasterner. So I feel like I've got like a little mishmash going on.
I'm going to do this quickly because I don't think I fully understand it. I just know something big's going down. Like OpenAI put out their new thing. ChatGPT is moving into that level of her. Did you guys see that movie with Joaquin Phoenix?
Oh my gosh. Never thought it would come to that, but it has.
I had not seen it.
It's here. Where he has well, you should, because it's really like a fortune-telling style movie. It's not the most entertaining movie, but he falls in love with his AI system. It's Scarlett Johansson's voice. She knows him intimately. They talk. They have a conversation. And these videos they're putting up right now with the new OpenAI, which has like a Siri-type effect, it's pure conversational. And it's crazy. Now, that's one way for me to talk about this. But the other way is I had a conversation with an executive at Fox the other day. He said it like this, and he said, anyone who's not using this is an idiot. Like, this is changing jobs as we speak. And I've never been a first adopter of anything. I'm just not. It's not who I am. But I feel compelled. Like, this thing, I think I need to get on it. I don't know how it needs to be involved in the Will Cain show, but I feel like it needs to. Like, I need to have a little Siri right here next to me that could fact check me as I go or something that I can talk to. I don't know yet, but it's going to be here, and I feel like I got to get in.
You won't need us as guests anymore, Will. You'll just be able to talk to your AI system and have a full-on conversation, and you won't need us anymore. So your bookers will probably be really happy about that.
Well, when I said that, Siri just popped up on my phone and started talking to me.
It is scary, though, because that movie that you're referring to, Her, is from 2013. Now we're more than a decade later, and that really is coming to life. When I saw the video that you were referring to about like the real life AI that this guy who was doing a live demo was talking back and forth with, I mean, it's no longer just as simple as you type in something. I mean, they hear your voice. They understand what you're saying. They even heard him breathing and were able to critique his breath work. I mean, it's getting very scary. And I have no doubts in my mind that already we're seeing a rate of singleness in our country that is growing by the years. Like, nobody wants to be in real relationships anymore. The birth rate is absolutely plummeting. I have no doubt the movie Her is actually going to come to life, and people are just going to say, you know what? Now I can stay home. I can binge watch my Netflix all night long. I don't have to go out. I can order in DoorDash, don't have to see anyone, don't have to deal with anyone, and I'm just going to date my AI system, and they're going to be the ones who keep me company. We're going to become such an isolated society. It's going to be disgusting.
It is scary where all of this
That's the dystopian part.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a few weeks ago, I was driving from Chicago to Detroit for the draft, and somehow my phone caught wind of the fact that I was going to do that, and it showed me an ad for like the Firekeepers Casino in the middle of nowhere in that drive. Like, it's 2 hours from where I am. There's 8 casinos closer to me than it. And it showed me an ad because it knew that it would be on my route. And, you know, I'm very scared that these like AI systems are going to like steal my house or something. Like, just, it seems like the ability for bad actors to use these tools for fraud are just going to be unlimited. And so I'm scared of that. And yeah, I haven't used it for work because I vainly think that I'm a better writer than AI is, but I don't know for how much longer that's going to be true.
I mean, seriously, I do think all those dystopian things that both of you describe, I think are legitimate and real, but I also think you have to lean in because I don't think there's any stopping it. And so you got to figure out how to bend it to your will, how to make it useful, you know. Don't let it be a threat, make it be a tool. You talk about, Charlie, especially with the relationships people are having. I want to run this last thing by you guys. I found this fascinating. This is a Harvard poll of young people, and it asked them if they agreed with various sentiments. And the big dividing line for them is interestingly politics. So more than gender, more than anything else, politics. And what I mean by that is the following. Listen, my generation is too soft. 28% of Democrats agreed with that, but 70%, 69%, all right, of Republicans agreed with that. You just keep going. It's all the way. Men are too soft. It's 61-19. Women are too promiscuous. 14% of Democrats agree. 46% of Republicans. Locker room talk, unfairly scrutinized. Only 11% of Democrats agree. 43% of Republicans agree. It's just fascinating all the way you go down this culturally. And in a way, Ryan and Charlie, we know this kind of instinctually because this is actually what's playing out on social media. We see this debate, like of all the debates, I don't care about I don't mean to be dismissive. I don't care about young people's political opinions because they change. And I speak from experience. You know what I mean? Like, how do young people feel about Trump? But I don't care. A, they don't vote really in very high numbers at all. And B, they change. So how do they feel about Israel, Gaza? Does it matter? It's going to be a lot different in 5 years. But this stuff, this is fascinating. Like fundamentally different views of culture based upon a right and left, a red and blue of America.
This isn't like an original point, but I think that the right and left and the political parties have replaced religion in maybe my generation and younger. I think a lot less people are going and getting their like foundational values from, church or temple or any type of religion. And that this is like kind of where these like spiritual allegiances have headed.
Yeah, I also think that a lot of
I
the talking. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Charly.
I was going to say, I think a lot of the talking points that people are picking up also come from social media and the different people that have big platforms on social media. Like, you talk about how it's more of the Republican demographic that feels like men have gotten too soft. Well, who does a lot of that come from? Andrew Tate preaches that, and he has been for years now. He has such a big following of young men who are now leading into that belief that young men are soft. And I'm also of that belief as well. And I think as far as like women are too promiscuous, he preaches the same thing. And there are many others like Andrew Tate who say the same things, but you find that it's more of those Republican or right-leaning young men who are following creators like that. Whereas, you have a lot of women who are obviously on the opposite spectrum, and women, as we know, tend to be more left-leaning than men do in general. So, their stances on all of these topics would obviously be very different.
And
responding to what both you guys
with
had
social
to say,
media, you opt into who you see. It's not where the monoculture that the three of us grew up with as recently as the 1980s and 1990s has eroded. Like, think of how famous people were then and how few of them there were. And now think of how many more allegedly famous people there are, but how much less recognized they'd be by wide swaths of the population.
Well, here's what I was going to say to both of you guys on your points. Like Andrew Tate, is he a leading indicator or is he a lagging indicator? So does he lead these men into these kind of polls, or is he taking advantage that this sentiment already exists and he is someone who is speaking to a group of people who feel underserved based upon how they view their society and their generation? And then Ryan, I wouldn't dismiss your point as unoriginal. I mean, the thing is, like, we kind of know, and this is the unoriginal part, politics is replacing religion. But it's interesting, if that's the case, how we develop our religious doctrines then under the banner of politics. Like, what are we worshiping, right? When we put politics at the center of the altar, and this is how we talk to each other or don't, what are the 10 Commandments? What are we worshiping literally when we're so pulling apart?
Right now, it seems more like the worship is kind of negativity about the other side more than kind of bowing down to like any one singular idol. Although I do think, Obama had a very fervent following, and I believe that Trump does as well. But, just in terms of what you were asking about like Andrew Tate, it's like an algorithmic thing where these platforms know how long you spend with certain personalities or certain topics, and then they serve you more of them. They're all kind of, their business model is maximizing your attention, and they've somewhat savvily realized that the way to maximize your attention is to rile you up.
Yeah, I also think that when you
ahead,
ask the question if Andrew Tate, for example, is a leading or lagging indicator, I think he's a little bit of both. I think that he has taken advantage of the notion that there needs to be more of this, quote, toxic masculinity in the world. But he also has helped to lead that movement because he's had these ideas for years now, and he started building up a platform. I mean, he is pretty much, you could mention Andrew Tate's name to anybody and they would probably know who he is at this point. I think a lot of his followers are potentially men who grew up in a single parent household, only having a mother, maybe raised under one set of ideals, and realizing that there's a whole nother world out there and they could be this different type of guy, and that's more who they want to embrace right now. And it rubs off on you too, because that's kind of getting back to the foundations of who men used to be. And I think a lot of people got to a point where they're thinking, oh, this isn't okay or isn't acceptable for a man to act like this. And a lot of that masculinity has been passed on into the hands of a lot of women these days. And I think men are now realizing, especially like you look at the frat boys on the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill's campus, when they finally stood up to those protesters lifting up the American flag, they're being celebrated now. And I think there was a point in time in which they wouldn't have been celebrated. But just back to the idea of cancel culture coming full circle, some of that is disappearing and being celebrated more.
Well, if this is becoming religious, and I think we can agree, I'm speaking not the three of us, but I hope that we as a society can agree that all of these tenets are true. All of these problems are real. Men are too soft. But we can pick a better savior, a better central religious figure than Andrew Tate.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not putting
religion.
him up on a pedestal. I'm just mentioning him as being someone that everybody knows.
No, you're right. You're right. But it shows the importance of finding someone who can be strong and virtuous and good and uncancelable. All right, I got to go. But I was told before the show, I know at least Ryan has a take on whether or not you're supposed to be wearing concert shirts to the concert.
Well, I'm going to be going to Dead & Co. in Las Vegas this week, and I can guarantee you there's going to be thousands of people, maybe with some gray in their beard, breaking that rule, and I intend to be one of them. My whole philosophy on life is do whatever you want that makes you happy, as long as you're not infringing on the happiness of others. I saw this meme earlier this week on X where like this woman took a photo of a man in an airport who like had the audacity to wear New Balance shoes with Adidas pants and a Nike shirt. Like he was like, you know, deserved to be like thrown to a penal colony for 5 years. And it's like, he's getting onto an airplane and you don't know if it's going to be 25 degrees too hot or 25 degrees too cold. Let him live.
Yeah, and Will, you know that there's
I'm with you.
Stores that are selling like
hold on, Charlie.
Guns N' Roses t-shirts.
I'm with you, Ryan. I'm with you, but I also want to be able to judge you if you're wrong. So here's the thing. Here's the key. I get to have fun judging you, but I want to do what I want, so you should do what you want as well. It's just when you're overly trying. Like if you're going through the whole process of like, I don't know, is this a rule? I shouldn't wear my shirt to the concert. Then you stepped wrong. Yeah. You're off on uncool. You're off. So I'm a big Cody Jinks fan. I'm going to wear the shirt to the Cody Jinks concert, Charlie.
Is it a vintage? Did you just buy it for this concert? Because vintage t-shirts are always cool. I don't care what anyone says.
It's probably worse than that. I probably had it like 6 years. So it's not old enough to be vintage and not new enough to be.
I think, you know what? If you have something for 6 years these days, that says a lot about your loyalty to that vintage article of clothing. I call it vintage.
Clothes don't last that long. They fall apart before that now.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't quit on a garment.
Nothing's built to last.
I
have an old Britney Spears concert t-shirt I don't wear it, but it's still at my mother's house. And I'm going to have it for life. And I guarantee one day when I put that back on, like as an older woman, I'm going to have people stopping me on the street. Where did you get that shirt? That's the coolest thing ever. So rock it. Speaking as someone who has a Britney Spears shirt from Target, I can confirm that you will get comments on it.
All right. Ryan Glasspiegel of the New York Post and Charly Arnolt of OutKick The Morning. You guys can check them out and should check them out. Charlie at OutKick, Ryan at the New York Post. Thank you both for being on the Will Kane Show.
Thank you for having us.